Dominican Republic, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, formerly the Secretary of Defense, called the attack a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America. Hegseth also announced that over 500 extra troops had now been deployed to the Washington, D.C. area. Then Vice President J.D. Vance made these remarks following the news.
Soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
Now, President Trump was not at the White House, of course. It is Thanksgiving tomorrow here in America. But he did release the following statement on Truth Social. He said, "The animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people." He went on, "I, as President of the United States and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you." So joining me in Washington is my panel this evening, Greg Swenson, Chair of Republicans Overseas UK, and Niall Gardner, former aide to Margaret Thatcher from the Heritage Foundation. So, gentlemen, you live here, you've lived here a lot longer than I have. When this happened this afternoon, where were you both? Were you in the office, Niall, here in DC?
Yeah, I was here on the ground in DC, and absolutely shocking developments, but it underscores the fact that this is also a very dangerous environment as well, and it looks as though this is an act of terrorism. Reportedly, the individual who carried out this atrocity is an Afghan national. So we'll have to see whether this is some sort of terrorist cell or an individual acting on his own. But certainly, the situation in Washington is very, very tense right now.
It is indeed. And now I haven't heard that detail. We've been across the wires all afternoon. We've been talking to local sources here as well. Can I press you a little bit on where you heard that he's an Afghan national?
I think it's been reported by the Telegraph in London.
Yeah, the Telegraph, we know that one of the journalists was down there this afternoon. We will have a look at that. We will try and clarify that. I did wonder about the presence of Kash Patel from the FBI, whether there was anything that we could read into that. Because, of course, shootings are not rare. This is America. People have guns. They are, a fairly regular occurrence. The detail, I think, Greg, which made me stop and pay attention, I was explaining to Patrick earlier, I had presumed that this area around Farragut West, isn't it? Farragut West metro station can be a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
A few homeless people, few street drinkers, people who might be high, people really struggling with life, let's put it that way. And I wondered whether there'd been an altercation, maybe someone was approached and whoever they'd approached had shot them. It's not looking like that now.
No, because this looked like an assassination.
Yeah.
This was not some random street violence or some altercation. And, it is a little bit of a gray area. It's a little seedier, closer to where we are in the studio because of the subway stations, but it was halfway between here and my hotel and the White House. I mean, this was a block and a half from my hotel, so that area is usually very well patrolled and very safe. Near so-called 17th and H Street. So this was a gray area, but this is a nice part of town. That shouldn't be happening there, and obviously it was an assassination, so that can happen anywhere, and it's hard to defend against it.
Well, we're hearing that the NBC is actually reporting that it was an Afghan national. Just tell people at home, Niall, because obviously the National Guard is something that is quite hard for us to relate to. They're a reserve military force, aren't they? They're citizens, they get paid for what they do, but they're citizen soldiers, effectively. They're a bit like our territorial army at home.
Yes.
And they aren't normally visible on the streets of America, but this is a President Trump venture to bring them onto the streets.
Yes, President Trump ordered the National Guard onto the streets of DC in order to deal with a massive crime wave, and they've been very effective actually in reducing crime, and even the mayor of DC, a Democrat, has actually acknowledged the tremendous role the National Guard has played in reducing crime in Washington. I think it's down by about 20% overall. And so they played a very, very important role in recent weeks and months, actually, in cutting crime. And I think that their presence on the streets of DC is absolutely essential.
Yeah, they are controversial. Some people don't like them. And actually, you know, the response this evening from Pete Hegseth, as he said, the Secretary of War, is not to row back on the National Guard, but to put an extra 500 of them on the streets here this evening. And I, for one, say thank you, because I think they make us feel a lot safer here. Right, let me know your thoughts this evening, gbnews.com/your say. Moving on to the other main news from the UK this evening, and of course it's the budget. And personally, I don't care who is in number 10. I just want them to care about pulling this country out of bed, into work, and a much-needed period of renewal, not more miserable decline. But today, the only people celebrating Labour's budget are families already on benefits with kids they can't afford if they don't have access to your money from your pay packet. Politicians rarely factor in human behaviour, be that laziness, greed, or a sense of despair, when going to work is less profitable every year of your adult life.
To break the cycle of austerity, we need a fair and a sustainable tax system. That does mean that today I am asking everyone to make a contribution.
The Chancellor promised not to raise taxes on working people. She just didn't tell you that she'd keep the brackets exactly where they were and let inflation do the dirty work. It's like saying, I didn't break the window, I just loosened the screws and waited for gravity.
She promised that she wouldn't be back for more. She swore it was a one-off. She told everyone that from now on it would be stability and she would pay for everything with growth. Today, she has broken every single one of those promises.
Labour are hitting your pension and savings too. If you salary sacrifice more than £2,000 into your pension, it's going to be hit with national insurance from 2029, equalling a £4.7 billion raid in 1 year alone.
She said to them, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll be there on Wednesday, I'll be there next year, and I'll be back the year after that. God help us. She is spineless, shameless, and completely...
The controversial two-child benefit cap will be scrapped from April at a small cost of only £3 billion by the end of this Parliament.
And so because I am tackling fraud and error in our welfare system, because I am cracking down on tax avoidance, because I am reforming gambling taxation, I can announce today, fully costed and fully funded, the removal of the two-child limit in full from April.
So if you've worked hard, saved money in order not to burden the state, paid off your house and you're under 65, then your cash ISA allowance was going to be cut from £20,000 to £12,000. There's going to be a brand new mansion tax on homes worth over £2 million. To be honest, I'm okay with the extra payments on houses worth over £5 million. But in London, £2 million can buy you a 3-bed mid-terrace in many areas. And this is going to hit an already sluggish housing market. And if you did as you were told and you bought an electric car, electric vehicles are going to be slapped with a 3p per mile tax, and fuel duty will rise for the first time in 16 years. Also, I believe that GB News viewers are going to decide the next election. GB News outperforms other news channels every day, and you, the viewers, are politically engaged. The disillusioned working people and the successful aspirational strivers. So is today the day that Labour realised they were digging their own grave? With me now is the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Liverpool City Council, Carl Cashman. Good evening, Carl. Thank you very much for joining me. So what do you like about this budget? What is there in there, Carl, to be happy about?
Well, I think struggling families, good evening first of all, I think struggling families will be happy to hear about the two-child benefit cap being scrapped, and also the mansion tax, as you just mentioned earlier. I think that those who have houses over 5 million and 2 million should pay a little bit more, but to be honest, I would go even further than that, and I would completely overhaul council tax altogether, because it's a broken system. I mean, how can you have a Band A property, which is the smallest property possible in Liverpool, paying more than a Band D property in London? the whole system's completely broken. And if she was realistic about wanting to change things, she would have scrapped council tax and just renewed it completely and made it fairer for the whole country.
How would you do that though, Carl? I mean, especially like in London, you've got some elderly people who probably bought the house many years ago, probably cash poor, but want to live in the house that they've worked really hard for all their lives. And they can't afford an extra couple of £1,000s a year on their council tax.
I wouldn't say that that is the case. I mean, these people will be paying thousands of pounds in the council tax anyway. There will be those exceptions, as you say, where it's people who are either pensioners or getting to pension age who can't afford that. And I think I see in the Chancellor's budget that they would assess those on a case-by-case basis. I think in the main, the people that are living in those properties have done really well for themselves and can afford to pay a little bit more. I think the Chancellor probably has done the right thing there, but when it comes to actual working people, she's stealth taxed them rather than actually outright tax them. So that change in the personal allowance is a stealth tax, essentially. You know, inflation is going to erode people's wages, and then that stagnation in the personal allowance is going to mean that people are going to see a real terms cut and a tax to their wages.
All right, stay with us. I want to bring in my panel, Greg Swenson here and Niall Gardner, and also former Labour advisor Paul Richards, who is in London. Right, gentlemen, let me start with you then, Paul. Good to see you. You give us reasons to be cheerful. What is in this budget that is going to pull this country out of its malaise and get everybody back to work?
Well, the focus is on how much money Rachel is raising in taxes, and no one likes paying taxes, let's face it, but look where the money's going. It's going into the National Health Service, for example, to lower the waiting list. There's going to be more money for pensioners, which I think everyone would welcome, hard-working people who deserve their pensions. The national minimum wage is going up, particularly for young people, so that young people, the next generation, get the idea that you get up, you go to work, you earn a fair whack for the work that you do. There's going to be these transport schemes. Whole bits of the UK are going to be joined up with new rail links, which of course then create jobs in the industry, but also beyond in taxi firms that are set up by stations, the people doing all the catering, all of that stuff, all the knock-on effects of that. And I think, you know, overall, alongside things like the trade deal with the USA that Trump and Starmer signed, is you will get growth. And our OBR, which is sort of the independent assessor here, made it very clear that growth is being upgraded. We'll get growth in the economy.
Greg Swenson, I can see you shaking your head.
Yeah, it's hard to agree with the minimum wage. I mean, it's always been proven to be a job killer and very averse to or very destructive in terms of growth and job creation. So you have that on top of the fuel tax, which is a regressive tax to say the least, and a whole long list of sort of anti-growth measures. So, I mean, I'm glad to see you're optimistic, but I'm not sure that these policies will result in growth, especially the minimum wage.
Niall, does Paul have a point, though, that, you know, youngsters, they're the ones we can't get out of bed to go to work. They think there's no point. Why would I go and I get, you know, £9 an hour? Whatever. It's going up to about £10.60, I think, isn't it, from £10 eventually, because obviously these don't kick in very, very quickly. Is it the kind of thing that's going to incentivise youngsters to go and work, or do we need something else, Niall?
I think, as Greg says, it's going to be a huge job killer, actually. It's going to destroy jobs and opportunities. This is another miserable socialist budget, actually, that raises taxes massively and also expands the size of the welfare state. It sends completely the wrong signal. Britain needs a real sense of economic freedom, economic liberty. This is a big government budget that is going to end up destroying jobs, forcing entrepreneurs outside of the UK, and I think it's one of the worst budgets that I've ever seen, if not the worst, actually, in modern British history. Just
very briefly, Carl, because I'm conscious that we've not got you for long, but what would the Liberal Democrats do to get businesses booming?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, well, two things that spring to my mind instantly. One is to cut VAT, and I would actually like to see VAT change completely because, as the gentleman was saying before, that is one of those regressive taxes. So I'd like to see that change. But initially, 5% cut in VAT for hospitality to make sure that they can prosper because they've suffered for a very long time, and also re-establishing our trade links with Europe, meaning a new customs union. I think it's been proven that we've lost 90 billion in trade and jobs from not having that customs union with Europe. So that's the first things that we need to do.
OK, well, I agree with you on 50% of that. Carl Cashman, always a pleasure to see you, leader of the Liberal Democrats City Council in Liverpool. And Paul, we will be back to you throughout the show. Thank you, gentlemen. Right, still to come tonight on The Late Show Live.
I said I would cut the cost of living, and I meant it.
Do you feel like that's been achieved? Millions of people will be dragged into paying higher taxes under Rachel Reeves' plans, but also tonight.
Let me explain to the Chancellor, woman to woman. People out there aren't complaining because she's female. They're complaining because she is utterly incompetent.
That was Tory leader Kemi Badenoch taking aim at the Chancellor as the growth forecasts are slashed for every year until 2029. Are you happy with that? Let me know. This is The Late Show Live only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, I think today we needed to see the Chancellor take action to boost living standards for millions of working people up and down the country, and I think we saw some really practical measures designed to do exactly that. So practical help with energy bills, boosting the national minimum wage, and crucially scrapping that two-child benefit cap, which will lift 450,000 children out of poverty by the end of the decade. So really important progressive steps in the right direction.
Well, we managed to find somebody that liked the budget. That was Paul Novak, the General Secretary of the Trade Unions Congress, speaking to GB News a little earlier. Taxes are going to rise by a staggering £26 billion following today's budget.
I've yet to see a credible or a fairer alternative plan for working people. These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure.
Some of the Chancellor's so-called right choices include freezing income tax threshold for an additional 3 years from 2028, known as a stealth tax, basically dragging workers into higher tax bands, whether you like it or not. There's going to be a new mansion tax introduced on properties worth more than £2 million, and a mileage tax will be introduced for electric cars, with drivers charged 3 pence for every mile that they drive. There's going to be a rise to the national minimum wage, so national insurance also on salary sacrifice pension contributions above £2,000, and also a gambling tax, a milkshake tax and a tourist tax. As a result, it means that 1 in 4 workers now face paying higher taxes, with Kemi Badenoch labelling the budget a nightmare before Christmas.
Today she has announced a new tax rate of £26 billion. They're all cheering. Household income is down. Spending policies in this budget increase borrowing in every year. That smorgasbord of misery we just heard from her can be summed up in one sentence. Labour are hiking taxes to pay for welfare. This is a budget for Benefit Street, Madam Deputy Speaker, paid for by working people.
So with me now is William Yarwood from the Taxpayers Alliance. Good evening, William. How many of these policies within this budget were in the manifesto? What I'm saying is, do people feel that they voted for this?
Well, good evening, Bev. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I think the answer is quite clearly no. I mean, I'm sure you remember, as many of us do, Labour consistently talking about not hiking taxes on working people, while also failing to find what working people actually are. And many people are saying that this budget is the first time that Labour has properly actually betrayed their manifesto promises to not raise taxes on working people. But I'm actually going to go one step further, Bev, and say they did that last time around in the last autumn budget by hiking employers' national insurance, and indeed removing agricultural property relief, hitting many family farms around the UK. I mean, are farmers not working people? Are people who own businesses not working people? Of course they are. But now we have, like you said, we have the fiscal drag that will occur due to the frozen tax thresholds, dragging more and more people into higher rates of income tax. We have taxes on properties and savings, so you're going to be punished for basically living in a big city. Lots of those houses are going to be worth more than £2 million just by the very nature of where they are, and you're going to be punished on your savings. So yeah, she's completely hit working people for the second time round, I think, and I don't think the British public is going to actually forgive her.
Well, let's bring in my panellists. Stay with me, William. William Yarwood from the Taxpayers Alliance. Let's bring in Greg and Niall, and also Paul Richards, former Labour advisor who is in London. We were just chatting in the break there, and we were saying it's really difficult to even know where to start with what a big horror show this is, and where we would actually start to pick apart how damaging this is, Paul. In terms of the psychology of the British people, what does this budget do? Because it frustrates me when politicians fail to factor in human behaviour. Because is child benefit actually going to encourage people to have more children? We need people to have more children. But if you're getting an extra 26 quid a week per child, that's not actually going to encourage you to have more children. If a government is serious about supporting larger families, this is just tinkering around the edges. It doesn't actually do anything, Paul, does it?
I think one of the most fundamental British values, the thing that makes us British, is an innate sense of fairness. And I think in this budget, it's about the people with the broadest shoulders taking the biggest burden, which is why I don't feel sorry for anyone with a £2 million house or a £5 million house paying a few extra £100, because I know the money is going into the National Health Service. It's going to our pensioners. There was a little line in the budget you probably missed, but we're going to repair all of the UK's playgrounds, so kiddies have got somewhere to play. You know, we're putting more police on the streets, we're fixing the potholes, we're putting the infrastructure back in place. And on the national minimum wage, I must push back on that. It does not cost jobs in the British economy. It may in other jurisdictions, but when this government, in its previous incarnation under Blair and Brown, brought in the national minimum wage, there were howls of outrage and scare stories about how many jobs it would cost. How many jobs did it cost? None. And in fact, there was more employment afterwards, because if you tell people you go to work not for £1 an hour or £2 an hour, but for a decent salary at the end of the week, they're going to get up and go and work.
But isn't it the case that if you just let people keep more of their own money, whether you are rich or whether you are poor, you will balance your own books? Isn't that just how psychology works? Unless you're on benefits and you've got 6 kids, and tonight you're sleeping well in bed at home tonight.
Well, first of all, those kids, it's not their fault that they were born. And, you know, if you grow up in poverty, you're more likely to stay in poverty and cost the rest of us more over the life cycle. But if we can break that cycle of poverty with lifting 450,000 kids out of poverty, they might end up as good citizens paying their taxes. So that saves us money down the line. And there are things we can't buy individually. We can't buy policing, we can't buy parks, we can't buy healthcare individually. We do it collectively through a fair system of taxation. Now, we could have an American system with low taxes and low welfare, or we can have a Scandinavian system with, you know, fair taxes and high levels of welfare. But what you can't have is American taxation and Scandinavian welfare. It just doesn't add up. So the tax has to come from somewhere. And I think the budget today is a fair attempt to introduce that fair system that people can afford to pay and make the whole country better.
OK, all right, we have to wrap that up there as well. William, thank you. Yarwood from the Taxpayers Alliance there. The rest of you are staying with me, of course, but we've got to take a very quick break. Still to come on The Late Show Live.
Our net financial debt this year will be £2.6 trillion, 83% of GDP.
Britain is drowning in debt. Will the Chancellor's budget be the life raft to save Britain from going under, but also tonight?
In my view, they should have been allowed to go down Whitehall, but clearly there is political interference here, right?
Priti Patel talking there. Well, farmers defied orders not to protest against the budget in Whitehall today, and I'll tell you why they chose to ignore those warnings, some of them being arrested. Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We have to keep standing up for farming until there are changes.
We, the people, are the power, aren't we? You know, if we don't stand up now, we're not going to have an open house chance.
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. We are going to bring you developments in this shooting story in Washington. The suspected gunman has been named as Ramanullah Lakanwal, a 29-year-old who entered the US in 2021. So we will bring you that as we know it. But back to the story that you just saw the clip of there. This is farmers who were arrested today at a protest in Westminster after they defied a ban on tractors. They were led away, some of them in handcuffs, after gathering to rally against changes to inheritance tax. And yet, in her budget today, Reeves seemed to double down on that decision, despite farmers warning that it will cripple their businesses and many of them will have to sell. She even pointed to it as the right move.
I reformed inheritance tax on agricultural and business assets. And this year, I am aligning those reforms with wider inheritance tax rules by allowing the transfer of the 100% relief allowance between spouses, balancing the taxation of these valuable assets with the realities of family life.
So Greg and Niall are here with me, and Paul is still in the studio in London. Greg, our farmers are in a desperate state, and I interviewed one of them last night. They're very law-abiding people. They want to live a quiet life by virtue of what they've chosen to do as a profession. They're not mavericks, they're not rebels, they're not even entrepreneurs. They just want to keep a business that they love in their own families. And how did you feel seeing some of them being arrested today?
It's horrible. I mean, first of all, the policy is destructive. It's going to hurt farmers. It's going to hurt food production. And so it's economically illiterate, first of all. But secondly, it's just particularly ironic that they wouldn't let them drive into London. I saw one, one of the drivers or one of the farmers arrested on the street pre-dawn before the sun came up. And while I wish they would do the same thing when the pro-Hamas protesters want to, flash, completely horrendous things on the side of the Parliament. And so, look, I think it was really unfortunate that the Met chose to do that. I'm sure there was pressure from the government, but I'm really disappointed in the Met.
Paul, you look exasperated.
Well, I'll tell you why. I was on GB News last night and some of the farmers were talking to Martin about the protest. They wanted to bring, Bev, 400 industrial-scale tractors into Whitehall on the day of the budget, and the police said you can't do that. That will bring the city to a standstill. It will disrupt the traffic into the hospital, and it will stop Londoners from going about their business. Now, I don't think that is unreasonable for the Metropolitan Police to say we don't want 400 tractors. That's the number they gave, 400 tractors on the streets of Whitehall. That's what they've had to, and the demonstration was allowed to go ahead, and you saw them on that part part of Whitehall where both Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves had to drive past. They could see the anger, they could see the placards, but what they couldn't do was bring London to a standstill with 400 tractors. Now, I'm on the side of protesters if they've got a legitimate case, but I'm also on the side of the police. And in this regard, I think the police made the right call.
So were you OK with them protesting on the previous occasions?
Yeah, and I came down actually and met some of the farmers when they were at the top of Whitehall with the tractors and did some interviews with you guys. And, you know, I'm not against protest, but on budget day...
So why not today? Why not today?
Because you can't bring Whitehall to an absolute standstill with 400 tractors. And I think the last time they came, it was nowhere near that number. And I think, you know...
There were that many, Paul. I was there.
Well, me too. But the point is, you wouldn't even be able to get the cars from Downing Street into Westminster, into Parliament, to deliver the budget. So it actually would disrupted the whole thing. So the protest went ahead. It was just the tractors that were banned, but the people were not banned. They were given space on Whitehall itself, right in the heart of our governance, so they could make their point loud and clear. But I think it's fair to say you can't bring the city to a standstill.
But go on, Niall, because I think they have absolutely every right today.
If I could respond to that, I'm with the farmers 100% here. They have every right to protest. They've been treated in a disgusting, despicable fashion by this Labour government, actually. And I think the scenes we saw today were police arresting farmers who are very deeply patriotic, hard-working people who pay a lot of taxes. These were absolutely despicable and appalling scenes.
They weren't breaking the law,
Niall. Of course, if you look at the way in which the Metropolitan Police responds to these barbaric pro-Hamas protests, and they do nothing at all, whereas these law-abiding farmers, deeply patriotic British people, are treated like criminals. This is an absolute disgrace. It's disgusting. We should never see scenes like this again of police arresting farmers on the streets of London. This is an absolute outrage.
The police did not do nothing, did they? They actually made mass arrests against the Palestine Action people in Parliament Square. They were cracking heads and dragging people off in great numbers. So they came down very hard on that demonstration.
That's a complete exaggeration.
So you just said they did nothing. You just said they did nothing, and I'm telling you, they made mass arrests of the Palestinian demonstrators.
It doesn't reflect reality at all.
Palestinian protests, a pro-Palestinian protest, Paul, have brought London to a standstill for 2 years on a Saturday. I mean, you can't get in a taxi to get into the West End on a Saturday night. Most people have just given up even trying to because they are such a disruptive force in London. The point is, this was a political decision today to stop the farmers protesting because it would have looked awful.
No, I disagree. It was an operational decision by the Met. And by the way, you're picking on the wrong person when it comes to the Palestinian demos, because I would ban them as well, or at least put them somewhere like a park where they can shout at each other and not disrupt London either. Because I've been in central London too when they've been demonstrating and you just can't get about.
Yeah.
And it costs the city millions. And also they'd have to send police from other forces to police these idiots, which means that you're more likely to get burgled out of London because there's no cops around. So, you know, I think you need to have balance of this. And people can't be allowed to bring the city to a halt.
And it's, excuse me, I'll just drink some water. And they're also very aggressive. Now, the farmers are not aggressive. The farmers are some of the sweetest, kindest people that we have in the UK. And they want to be there to make their feelings known. And they're appealing to the compassion of this Labour government. Please don't force me to sell my family home. I think it's astonishing that the government were OK with them being... They should have accommodated that protest. That protest had been given permission to go ahead. And I'm not quite sure why, with such very short time to go, with less than 48 hours, the organisers were told, no, we've changed our mind, you can't be there.
The protest did go ahead. There was a protest, it just wasn't with tractors. They were there, that's why they got arrested, because they were present in the Whitehall area. So it wasn't banned, it was just meant you couldn't bring your 400 tractors, which I say is entirely reasonable.
OK, thank you, Paul. Right, let's move on. Let's return to this developing story emerging out of Washington this evening. Now, CBS News is now reporting that the suspect who allegedly shot 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday has been named as Ramanullah Lakanwal, a 29-year-old who entered the US in 2021 under President Biden. Sources are also telling NBC News that the suspect has been identified as an Afghan national. Now, we heard earlier this afternoon that he was said to have been wounded during the incident and taken to hospital. We will get more on that as we hear it. President Trump called him an animal, didn't he, in his statement, Greg? But this changes the complexion of this, does it not?
Yeah, it does. And I think if you look at what's happened in the U.S. in the last 4 years or 5 years prior to President Trump coming into office, it was a completely open border. And President Biden did that quite purposely. He wanted illegals to come into the country unvetted. This is what you end up with. And it's very similar to what's happening in the UK. So I would almost say, you know, it's inevitable that something like this would happen. We've seen it in both countries. President has put an end to it, but unfortunately, we have 15 million illegal migrants still running around. Yeah. So we can't deport them all overnight.
We know at the moment the 2 National Guard members are currently in a critical condition, as opposed to earlier reports that they'd already lost their lives. We will bring you the details on this as we get it. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
These are my choices, the right choices.
The Chancellor insisting that she's making the right choices. So why do so many people feel worse off tonight than they did this morning? Also on the show this evening.
Endless excuses. She blames Brexit. She blames Donald Trump. She needs to blame herself.
While the Chancellor's busy making excuses, she's just given you a pretty good reason not to buy an electric car. More on that next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. We are just looking at this breaking news story here in Washington, D.C. As it's been confirmed that the shooter was an Afghan national that arrived in the US in 2021. Yeah, he has been named. We're just looking at the details of this, but we will bring it to you as it emerged. He's been named as 29-year-old Rahmanullah Lakhanwal, an Afghan national, entered the US in 2021 under Joe Biden. Now, moving on, millions of electric vehicle drivers are going to be hit with a tax, which could end up costing them hundreds of pounds a year. The Chancellor also announced that fuel duty will be frozen again, but only for 5 months until September 2026. And after that, the 5p cut first brought in back in 2022 will be reversed in a so-called staggered approach. Let me turn to my panel here. Greg Swenson and Niall Gardner are here, and Paul Richards is still with us in London. Niall, so all these people in the UK who did what they were told and bought an electric vehicle because they were told they had to save the planet, well, guess what? They've now had the rug pulled from beneath them because they're going to have to pay tax like everyone else as well. It's just cruel, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's another, of course, stupid policy from this socialist Labour government, and yet again another tax. And I think the message it sends, actually, you're better off buying a petrol vehicle rather than EV vehicle, actually. And so you have this so-called sort of green, government, net zero government in Britain, and now applying taxes on each mile you drive with an EV. And so it's another nonsensical policy. And in the United States, of course, people are free to drive whatever vehicle they want to drive, which is a far better approach, actually. Give people the choice of whether they want to drive EVs or petrol, and reduce taxes, actually, and encourage people to drive more, actually. That actually leads to more job creation, actually, and more, more growth for the economy, actually. And this word, Paul, freedom. Freedom to get in your car whenever you want and drive where you want without the government punishing you for doing so. It's disgusting. I think more and more people have got these new electric vehicles. I think it's only fair they're brought into the tax system, same as everybody else. But something missing from the conversation is that the Labour government has just frozen train fares for the first time in 30 years. So actually encouraging people onto the trains and the investment being put into the new lines like the DLR, the Docklands Light Railway in London, is going to get people out of their cars completely, and you get on a nice cheap train, and that's far better for everyone. I don't want to get in this train. I want to go in my car. I don't want to go on the train, and I don't want the government to decide that I should get on a train because they want to wag their finger at me and tell me it's what I should do. I mean, it's not compulsory, Bev, but it just gives people more choice, which is what we support. It's not compulsory, it's just coercion, and that is why we're all feeling a little bit demented. Coming up in the next hour, this.
So is he mansplaining to you, by the way? Is he mansplaining? Do you want some help? Would you like some help?
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry at least through daylight hours showers, that is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights despite the clear skies. That breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Bring you the latest on this shooting of the National Guard in Washington, D.C. this afternoon, and we'll also be looking at what the budget might mean for you. The Late Show Live tonight.
Taxes on workers, taxes on savers, taxes on pensioners, taxes on investors, taxes on homes, holidays, cars, I think even milkshakes. Taxes on anyone doing the right thing.
A smash and grab on working Britain. It's the biggest tax-raising budget in history, pushing the country into uncharted territory.
These are my choices, the right choices.
But a defiant Chancellor stands by her plans.
I said there would be no return to austerity, and I meant it.
She pushes aside plans to cut public services by making you pay more.
This budget will bring down inflation and provide immediate relief for families.
Immediate relief. Are you feeling relieved this evening? Do let me know.
After this budget, she will go down as the country's worst ever Chancellor.
Or are you left fearful of what this budget means for you?
We beat the forecasts this year and we will beat them again.
But perhaps the only thing that feels like it's getting a beating is your wallet.
Today I am asking everyone to make a contribution.
She promised that the tax hikes were over.
She promised that she wouldn't be back for more. She swore it was a one-off. She told everyone that from now on it would be stability and she would pay for everything with growth. Today, she has broken every single one of those promises.
Instead, the government has had their begging bowl out again, and now you have no choice but to pay. And why?
£22 billion black hole in the public finances left by the party opposites.
She's still banging on about the £22 billion black hole. The classic excuse has made a return to politics.
Endless excuses. She blames Brexit. She blames Donald Trump. She needs to blame herself.
That's right, even President Trump here in America has been blamed, but...
What did the Chancellor think would happen when she went on breakfast telly to do an emergency public service announcement? I interrupt your Cheerios to bring you this frightening message about income tax. And then, unbelievably, she changed her mind 3 days later. No wonder people are in despair.
It's all painting a picture of a government and a country in chaos.
God help us. She is spineless, shameless, and completely aimless.
My panel are here, still here with me. Can I just say that I didn't like what I didn't like that thing that Kemi Badenoch did then when she sort of mimicked her. Did you?
It was a little personal, but I think Kemi was in good form. She was much more animated than she usually is.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was refreshing, but maybe I'm used to Donald Trump, who's so refreshing as well. You know?
She was more animated, you're right, but I just thought, come on, Kemi, rise above it. Don't get down. I hate Parliament with the baying and the heckling and the childish. I can't bear it on a day like today, Niall. I just think, oh, can you all just grow up?
Yeah, I think with Kemi, I mean, she's under a lot of pressure, of course, to lift the Conservatives in the polls. They are at historically low levels, although slightly above Labour, it has to be said. And so she's under a lot of pressure to be a lot more aggressive and forceful. I think we're seeing that. I think overall her performance actually was very good.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that.
And Kemi certainly is looking a lot more assertive today. And Rachel Reeves, I have to say, I mean, she looked absolutely, beaten, I think, ideologically and policy-wise. She had no real response, actually, other than to recite, the usual socialist talking points. And I thought, actually, the leader of the opposition completely outclassed the Chancellor today, actually. So I thought Kemi, overall, she did rather well.
I've not asked you yet now, but I will ask you what Margaret Thatcher would have thought about today. But we will come on. We'll come on to that.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.
Now let's return to the developing story emerging out of Washington this evening. So it was about 2:40 this afternoon here. We're about 5 hours behind. Well, we're exactly 5 hours behind you, of course. It was about 2:40 this afternoon. Two members of the National Guard were shot in Washington, D.C. It's just a couple of blocks from the White House, and actually it's even closer to where GB News is here, just probably 500 metres or so from where we are. It was approximately 2:15. We're thinking members of the National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area, and that just means they walk around the streets. There might be in groups of 4, 5 of them. They're normally just very pleasant. They say hello to you as you walk past, but they are a visible presence for keeping crime in check. A suspect, we hear, came around a corner, saw the National Guard and opened fire. So CBS News is now reporting that the suspect who allegedly shot the two guardsmen is called Ramanullah Lakanwal. He's a 29-year-old who entered the US in 2021. Sources have also told NBC News that the suspect is an Afghan national, and this is what one witness says that he saw.
We heard like rapid gunshots, then we heard more gunfire. So we ran down the street. They had a person pinned on the ground yelling at him to stay down, and there was broken glass in the bus stop. That's when we saw two National Guards on the ground.
Of course, social media was awash with footage very soon after this event. There's a lot of high-rise buildings here in Washington, D.C., a lot of offices that had a view down to the violence that was happening on the ground. FBI Director Kash Patel gave this statement.
Two of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice.
Speaking on a visit to the Dominican Republic, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, called the attack a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America. He also announced that over 500 extra troops have been deployed to the area from this evening. Vice President J.D. Vance was visiting a military base, coincidentally, and he made these remarks following the news.
Soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
And soon after the attack, President Trump released the following statement on Truth Social, his own social media channel. He said, "The animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, he is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you." And within the past few minutes, the Trump administration has filed an emergency motion aimed at keeping National Guard troops in DC. So let's just talk about that. Greg Swenson and Niall Gardner here in the studio with me. Why does Trump need to file an emergency motion to keep the National Guard in DC?
In case there's any risk of because it has to be done on a temporary basis. So I think, you know, the president wants to ensure that there's no risk that National Guard will be removed by some rogue judge, some activist judge who, even if they don't win ultimately, could at least have the National Guard removed. It's really important. It's been great for this city. It could be great for Chicago and New York, but in the meantime, it's been effective in Memphis, Tennessee as well. So this is a big issue, and I think, if anything, we'll get more National Guard, not less.
Because you spend a lot of time in Chicago.
I do.
And you are conscious that the crime there is out of control.
Of course, and it's similar to, you know, you saw the subway attempted homicide last week with pouring gasoline and burning this poor woman. 18 felony convictions from her, no, 8 felony convictions, but over 50 felony arrests. And he's out on the street on no cash bail. We saw the person that robbed my next door neighbor in Chicago had 18 felony convictions and was out on no cash bail. So these Soros-supported liberal progressive district attorneys are releasing prisoners, or people that should be prisoners. They're not even going to jail for felony convictions. So this is a big crisis in blue states and blue cities, whereas the red states, red cities are much better run. At least they're not perfect, but they welcome law enforcement. And so this is a big issue, and I think this news today is tragic, but I also think it will perhaps raise awareness for the challenges we have in these really poorly run Democrat cities.
Some of the controversy around the National Guard being here in Washington, Niall, revolves around where they are. And some people say, well, they aren't in the areas that really need them, because there are obviously crime is high, has traditionally been high in Washington, D.C. It's a very diverse city. There are pockets of poverty in Washington. And some people have said, well, the National Guard look great on the streets where the tourists might be, and it makes people feel reassured, but they're not within the communities that really need them. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think that actually we need to see the National Guard actually in the main tourist areas and also around the White House. But in addition to that, we need to see the National Guard being sent into the inner city areas, taking on the gangs. And DC has a real crime problem, a real gang problem in the city. And I do think we need to see the National Guard being aggressively placed in the worst high crime areas of Washington, DC. It's outrageous that you have some of the most dangerous parts of the country in the nation's capital. Thanks to decades of left-wing liberal policies. And as Greg pointed out, wherever you have the Democrats in charge, crime is sky high in the United States. But where you have conservatives in charge, crime is far, far lower.
OK, right, let's return to our top story tonight from the UK. Of course, it's been budget day and we are broadcasting from Washington, D.C. But let's talk about the comparison that really matters: Britain taxing and America turbocharging. While the Labour government is hiking taxes, with 1 in 4 Brits now paying a higher rate, President Trump, with his what he called his big beautiful bill, one big beautiful bill, is moving in the opposite direction. Here in America, he's extending individual tax cuts, introducing new deductions on tips and overtime, and he's scrapped inheritance tax, what they call death tax, here entirely. In Trump's America, you work more, you keep more, and back in the UK, the tax burden is heading for a post-war record over 38% of gross domestic product. Now, that's not just a squeeze, that is a stranglehold. So while Washington is cutting, slashing and simplifying, Britain, some would say, is freezing, raising and quietly dragging millions into higher tax bands. Two countries, two economic visions, one betting on growth, the other betting on you working and taking money out of your wallet. Let's discuss this more with Andrew Dale, Senior Trade Policy Analyst at the Heritage Foundation. Good evening, Andrew.
Hello.
So, your broad assessment, if you don't mind, of this budget and what it means for the British people.
Well, I mean, Labour promised in their manifesto not to raise taxes on working people. But, 16 months later, after coming to power, Labour has actually hiked that 7-fold to more than 66 billion. And today it was announced that the overall tax burden is increasing to 26 billion pounds. And then Rachel Reeves had the absurdity to say later today, after the House of Commons appearance, that she, and I'm quoting now, recognizes that she's asking people to pay a little bit more. And I think that was quite frankly an absurd statement, and it was actually offensive to the people who actually pay the taxes.
Well, let's bring my panel in as well. And a question that I've been dying to ask you, Niall Gardner, what would Margaret Thatcher think of this budget today? What would she think of the state of the country?
Well, I think she'd be horrified by this latest Labour budget and should be appalled at the present state of Britain. And I think that, her view of Rachel Reeves would be that Reeves is monumentally unqualified for the new.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News. Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
Apologies for that. We fell off air there just for a little while, but we're back with you now. I think somebody turned the computer off and on again. And we're still here. Niall Gardner is still with me and Greg Swenson, and Paul Richards, former Labour advisor, is still with us in the studio in London. I just wonder whether it's worth us having a look at some of these front pages and how the budget has been handled for tomorrow. The only one that seems to be positive, Paul, is the Mirror, predictably, saying budget with a Labour heart. Axe to the two-child benefit cap will lift 450,000 out of poverty. Mansion owners and online gambling firms hit with a tax hike. Everybody else, every other publication is pretty much saying spend now, pay later. A red box of broken promises, says the Daily Telegraph. The Benefit Street budget, says the Sun. A budget for Benefit Street paid for by working people, says the Express. How will Rachel Reeves feel about the reaction to this budget tomorrow morning?
Rachel has obviously lost the dressing room. If the dressing room was entirely comprised of millionaire newspaper owners, which is what has happened, but she's trying to do the right things for the long term. The front page of the Telegraph, you mentioned there, Bev, there's a story here that says Britain is now in the grip of full-blooded socialism. They've lost their minds, you know. It's just, all we've done is put some taxes up.
True, actually. How is it not?
Yeah. How is it not? Well, a wealth tax was mooted before the budget. That hasn't happened. VAT hasn't gone up. We haven't nationalised anything or taken any money off anyone that, you know, can't afford it. It's a fair budget. It's a sort of broadly European social democratic style budget where people pay a bit more tax to pay for the public
budget,
services. So, you know, the idea that this is full-blooded socialism, what nonsense, honestly. So, yeah, she's lost the headlines, and the Mirror, loyally being a Labour paper, has come back. But you know what? The real test will be in people's pockets.
Before you move on, I want Niall to just respond to your assessment there. Go on, Niall.
Yeah, this is a self-described socialist government. So yes, we are actually in the grip of socialism in Britain. And as for Rachel Reeves, I mean, her performance was incredibly weak, and she's actually a chancellor who doesn't really have any qualifications to be chancellor. And I think she's the weakest chancellor in modern British history.
That's your view. But Mrs. Thatcher had a string of...
If you compare her... If you compare her with the likes of Nigel Lawson, for example, compared to, well, Kwasi Kwarteng, also different league to Rachel Reeves, actually.
Yeah, he trashed the economy and put it in the toilet.
For the job.
Kwasi Kwarteng tanks the economy and cost us all $1 million. We're still trying to crawl out of the hole.
Right now,
absolutely not. No, the bond markets have reacted well to this. The markets are stable.
Out of the country, destroying economic growth.
The markets don't think so.
Everything in its path, and that's what we're seeing right now with Britain sinking as a result of
markets don't agree with you, Niall. Niall, the markets do not agree. They are stable here in the UK. The markets have reacted perfectly calmly to this because it is a
economic growth? I don't see the economic growth of Britain.
Well, it's been upgraded. The OBR's upgraded growth to 1.5%, so the growth figures are going up.
Oh, so the OBR has upgraded, Britain's growth forecast, but meanwhile, the reality is the economy is sinking.
Let me ask Greg, because Greg, you know more about the markets than any of us here. Hang on, Paul. Greg, you understand the markets better than any of us on this panel. That's what you've done for years. Yeah. Why are the markets reacting quite well to this?
There's two reasons, basically. One is that it could have been worse, and that's something that markets try to anticipate. And when they realize today that this is a socialist manifesto, or more importantly, a socialist budget, that's not bad as long as there's no defaults. So that's the second big reason, is as long as there's no threat of default, they will be stable or even rally, because bondholders just want to get their money back.
You mean defaulting on the debt that we owe?
Right. But what will happen long term is that there'll be stagnant economic growth or even economic destruction, and ultimately that will be a threat to bondholders and to the markets in general. So this is just almost like a finger in the dike, Band-Aid to make sure that they can at least service the debt for a few quarters. But long term, as rates go higher, tax receipts will go down. So they've never had a Laffer curve apparently in the Labour government. So as they raise taxes on businesses will shutter. I'm especially worried about hospitality, who have tax increases plus this destructive minimum wage hike. So you're going to see business failures, you're going to see lower tax receipts because people will be earning less money. The only people who are going to make more money are people on welfare. Paul? They don't pay the tax.
Well, you put money into people's pockets through pension increases, and you do it through national minimum wages. They spend that money in their community. It supports local shops and local pubs and restaurants. There are tax breaks for the hospitality trade in this budget. That will help the high street as well. And I think putting more money into people's pockets is proven to help an economy grow, because they spend that in up and down the supply chain. And before the break, Bev, you posed a very interesting question: US versus UK. Two versions of the economy. Which one is the best? And I think the Americans never really quite understand the European approach of a welfare state, collective services, things like the National Health Service, minimum wages, things that I think an American said taxation is a subscription to a civilized society. And that's the route we're going down. And we could counterpose that with what Trump is attempting, and we'll all live to see which one is better. But at the moment, I think the Labour government is showing that in this country, in the UK, you can have fair taxation alongside good public services on which we all rely, and making a better society as a result.
So how many of the world's top performing companies are actually based in Europe as opposed to the United States? There's a massive difference actually between the entrepreneurial low-tax culture in the US and the massive welfare state mindset in Europe. And there's a vast difference, actually, between
Volvo,
the success
Nokia,
of American
I mean, there's a slew of European
companies. There's a huge difference, actually, in terms of equality and achievement. And that's the difference between the United States, which believes in economic freedom, economic liberty, and Europe, which believes in big government, massive welfare states and high taxes.
And I think
but you've just said it's a... Sorry, Bev, I don't want to interrupt, sorry.
Go on.
Well, I'm just going to make the point.
But my concern is, this isn't a government who... Sorry, we got this delay, but this isn't a government that is actually clamping down on the big transnational corporations. I'm quite happy to see them take a swipe out of Amazon or Google or whatever. They're not doing that. They're still in awe of big business, this Labour government, whilst punishing the landlord, you know, the decorator in Reading, the builder in Birmingham, whatever it is, the baker in Bury, I've got more of them. You know, those are the people I want to build our country up, because those are the people who our country was built on, who want to go out and do a fair day's work and not be beholden to a massive transnational global corporation.
Well, just to finish off the point I was making about the states, you know, you're saying, well, this sort of economic nirvana, but you've just described yourselves mass crime, drugs, you know, you can't go out at night. I mean, it sounds terrible. I've never been. I don't think I want to come to the United States based on what you've told me there. And on the point about Labour and business, is that, of course, the Labour government wants to deal with business, to encourage business. There's encouragements within the budget for people coming to the stock exchange in London, because we know you can't, the governments don't create growth, right? Businesses create growth, and we're not socialists in that old school sense. We do believe in a mixed economy where private businesses do well, but not at the expense of the citizen or the worker. It has to be a fair balance, and you can be pro-worker and pro-business simultaneously, and that's what's being attempted. So that's why we encourage American tech firms to come to London. That's why the US trade deal with Trump was so important, because it lays the foundations, as well as the trade deals with India and with the EU, because of course trade and of course business and of course entrepreneurs are welcome, because that's how you get the growth.
How on earth do workers benefit from higher taxes? I mean, that just makes no sense whatsoever.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Pro-growth, but this budget is the opposite.
How do workers benefit from high tax?
Well, because they share in the collective goods that the taxes pay for. So their kids get apprenticeships, they can travel on cheaper trains, they can go to the park and there's a park keeper and a police officer keeping them safe. They can use the National Health Service when they fall ill, and they have a pension when they grow old. And this is the collective provision through collective taxation. And that's the whole basis of our civilization.
OK, all right, Paul, thank you. Right, gentlemen, yeah, you can see the looks on your two faces sitting there thinking, what a lovely utopian world that would be. Right, still to come on The Late Show Live.
I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work.
Mandatory. The true cost of digital ID has been revealed today as part of the budget. I'll tell you the figure the government would like to keep hidden. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Here in India, I think it's 1 billion people have digital ID. It's been taken up on a voluntary basis in huge numbers, not least because it means that you can access your own money, make payments so much more easily than is available with others. So I think now we need to go out and make that case of the huge benefits that this will bring.
I've almost never been more frightened of the government. That's not true. I was more frightened during the pandemic. But we are getting a glimpse of what a totalitarian government would do to us. Now, the OBR forecast has estimated that the government's digital ID scheme is forecast to cost the taxpayer a staggering £1.8 billion over the next 3 years. So joining me now is the expert on this topic, Alan Miller, co-founder and chair of Together Association, who was also with the farmers today, Alan. So I'm going to ask you about that as well in a minute. But that 1.8 billion, so now we've got a number on it. Are they going to be allowed to spend it on this? Are we all going to be enslaved in this digital cage?
Well, it's remarkable, isn't it, Bev, that we had a government that have come in that never said anything in the budget about any of this, and all of a sudden it's going to get rid of the problem with migration and the boats, and then it's going to deal with convenience and safety. It's going to make us lots of money. Actually, I think 1.8 billion is an underestimate of what the cost is, but the cost is not financial on its own. The cost is the question about the relationship between the citizen and the state. The question is, are we going to be a papers, please society? Are we going to renege on all the things that our forefathers fought for in our society about freedom, privacy? Or are we going to have a biometric, surveillance state that says every part of everything that you do, we're going to survey and transact and check? The British public don't want this, Bev. They're absolutely clear about it. I know 3 million people signed the petition, but actually nobody wants snooping, censoring, imposing state on this. So we've got 8 million directors now that are being forced into this, 1.8 million veterans that are being used as guinea pigs, and children, Bev, and children that are having their digital ID being imposed on them. The British public doesn't want this. It's absolutely unacceptable. And the idea that Keir Starmer's panacea of this wonderful thing that's going to happen is utterly egregious and unacceptable.
Yeah. Let me bring my panel in as well, Alan. I know you've had a very long day, so I'm conscious not to keep you too long because you were up with the farmers at the crack of dawn this morning. But Paul Richards, when you listen to this, does it sound like insanity to you? I did a long-form interview with somebody from the Tony Blair Institute, and I was really pleased to talk to him about this because I thought, come on, open your mind, Bev. You're not a Luddite. We know we've got to move with the times. Maybe there is some benefit in this. And anybody can watch that. It's on GB News' YouTube channel. And I came away having spoken to him for nearly an hour, and the best I could draw from this, it was, well, it can be inconvenient to find a bank statement if you want to buy a house or get a mortgage. I thought, it's not inconvenient. I literally go and get the piece of paper out of my file and I take a picture of it and I upload it onto a website. It's not, it's awful, Paul. This system is deeply unpopular, and that 1.8 billion, that's not going to scratch the surface. That number's going to times by 10 at least.
Well, I'm an enormous advocate of the digital ID scheme. I think it's a brilliant idea. And, you know, I think in 5 or 10 years' time we'll look back and we won't quite believe the fuss it caused, because it's just an obvious thing to do. And if you look at somewhere like Estonia, right, that's not some terrible authoritarian Orwellian state. It's just a modern democracy with a digital ID card for everyone. And they can use that to access public services and to get things done, and everyone has it as a mark of citizenship. In a drawer at home, I've got my old mum's national ID card, right? It's not the first time we've talked about this. Every citizen used to have one, and we got rid of them, and now we're bringing them back in a digital form. And there's so much data on our phones anyway. It's not like this is a big leap of imagination. At least this will be official, and everyone will have it.
Alan Miller, go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Winston Churchill dispensed with all of those things, and he said you will be free, right? It's not the first time, but under a war economy, things are very different. The idea that we should have to show who we are and have digital surveillance across the board is absolutely reprehensible. The question is, right, we've seen all sorts of things, from debanking to censorship to two-tier policing to what you post on social media. The whole idea that from low-traffic neighbourhoods to where you move about to the whole idea of taxation, and everything is monitored by a surveillance state, is absolutely reprehensible. And to what purpose? When was this ever discussed in the manifesto? When was the public ever won across to this? If you wanted to win the argument that you're making, that's all about efficiency, if you look at Labour Together's brick card argument, which by the way is different to one login, then what you would want to do is argue the virtue of the point with the public. But no one's ever done that, right? Because the point is they don't believe in the merit of the argument. What's actually going on now is a huge nudge and a huge push. We saw it with vaccine passports. We're seeing it again. And just to say, right, the contemptuous technocratic class that think they're just going to impose it on us, it's not going to happen, right? We've got a digital bill of rights where we're saying you have to be able to opt out. The idea that you can say, show me your papers in Britain. It's unacceptable. And you can be cavalier about it and say, look how efficient it is, and, oh, we could do with this. It's not about getting the invoices out of our drawer. You're actually gaslighting the whole of the British public, and they're not having it.
Paul, maybe you lack imagination, Paul, as to what this actually is, and that you see it as this entirely benign, efficiency method, and it has the potential to be so much worse.
No, I disagree. Using words like surveillance, I mean, that's not what this is about at all. It's about having information on your phone which you can use to access public services and declare you're a citizen. It might help cut crime in some ways as well, and people have to declare who they are before they get employment. But it's just a very obvious, straightforward digital response to a problem, and it's something that we'll all, I say, in 10 years' time, we'll look back and go, oh, well, that was easy. It didn't turn out to be a massive plot. It wasn't some awful Orwellian thing that I don't know who this digital class are, that want to impose, and certainly isn't about surveillance, because nobody wants to be surveilled any more than anyone else. But it just seems like an obvious thing in the modern world to do, and why not?
Are you aware of the Chinese social credit system, Paul?
Well, I'm aware that China is a dictatorial, surveillance state, but we're not. We're a democracy, and we're not like China, so it's an entirely false equivalence.
We've had more laws to clamp down on free speech in the last few years than ever. Just 1 second, Alan. And we've also got David Lammy talking about taking juries out of the judicial system. And we are edging towards a world in which I am getting increasingly frightened by this government. Go on, Alan Miller, last word.
Well, we had a situation, didn't we, where we were locked down. We were told we couldn't go to places without a vaccine passport. We've been told all sorts of things, right? The idea that you think the social credit system is beyond comprehension. We've had people debanked, like Nigel Farage and a whole range of other people. We've had people put in prison for what they've said on social media already, before you've even got any of these things in place.
And what's that got to do with ID cards?
I tell you what it's got to do with ID cards. If you've got a centralised infrastructure where everybody's got to declare who they are, and everyone's being censored and tracked, like the CEO of the Bank of International Settlements says.
Not everything is a conspiracy, Not everything is a conspiracy.
Under CBDC, I think you're being slightly cavalier about the idea of the relationship between the citizen and the state. And actually, what it really reflects is that the left has lost any bearing on what the idea of the state and the citizen is. Free citizens that actually have agency and privacy are a huge part of an Enlightenment legacy. And you're just jeopardising all of that.
Well, I mean, all in favour of the Enlightenment, but not everything is a conspiracy. And having a digital ID on your phone, pretty much like all the information we've already got.
What do you mean by a conspiracy?
What's that mean?
Well,
I'd just like to know what you mean by that.
I've heard Nigel Farage being debanked. Something about COVID. Something about people being arrested. What's that got to do with a digital ID card, just like in Estonia?
Where's the conspiracy, mate?
You've suggested that this is somehow a conspiracy to introduce surveillance, is the word you use, surveillance.
That's what's happening. Facial recognition without anyone talking about it in a manifesto across British streets.
Not everything is a conspiracy. Facial recognition is a really good way to tackle crime.
I've never mentioned that word. I'm talking about actual things that are happening.
Facial recognition is a really good idea. What's wrong with that? It helps to beat crime. It takes the bad guys off the street. I support the police using that. Helps beat
Alan Miller, we have some work to do. Alan, thank you so much for joining us. And let me know at home what you think. I despair. Still to come on The Late Show Live tonight.
Let me explain to the Chancellor, woman to woman. People out there aren't complaining because she's female. They're complaining because she is utterly incompetent.
The Chancellor announced today that the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped. But is it the right call? And could it benefit certain nationalities more than others? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. But Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry, at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
And so because I am tackling fraud and error in our welfare system, because I am cracking down on tax avoidance, because I am reforming gambling taxation, I can announce today, fully costed and fully funded, the removal of the two-child limit in full from
So that means if you've got more than 2 children now, they will all get child benefit if you're on, I think it's if you're on universal credit. That's going to happen from next April. The Chancellor revealed that in a budget. The policy was introduced by the Tories in 2017. Oh, here we go. It means that parents can only claim universal credit or tax credits for their first 2 children, but they've scrapped that now, and it's going to cost £3 billion a year by 2029 to 2030, by which point they may not be in government anyway, I suppose. I'm just trying to give you reasons to be cheerful. The Conservative Party have criticised the decision, saying that people on benefits should have to make the same financial choices about having children as everyone else. But here's some food for thought. White British mothers, on average, will have 1.5 children, whilst non-UK born mothers in the UK will have significantly higher fertility rates. So Pakistani families have an average of 3.2 children. Bangladeshi families have an average of 3 children. So will the 2-child cap being lifted disproportionately benefit migrants? Let's get the take of Liat Hughes Joshi, a parenting journalist who joins me now. Liat, thank you for joining me this evening. So, I mean, the facts are, if you are living in the UK and you're from a Pakistani heritage family, Somalian heritage or Bangladeshi, you are going to be getting more taxpayers' money than a UK-born mother. Does that seem fair?
Look, I think the idea behind taking away the 2-child benefit cap is that it's there to alleviate child poverty. And if you were to ask the British public, do you want to, are you happy to pay extra taxes to alleviate child poverty? I think we'd all say yes, but we would question whether this policy is the right way to do it. And spending £3 billion incentivising people to have very large families that, if they are able to claim these benefits, they can't afford is not something most of us would be happy about, I think, you know, regardless of what background those people are from. So I don't think it is something that most of us see as the right way to go about this and see as a good solution to child poverty. I mean, the other thing I'd question is, in families with lots of kids, how do we know that that money, and it is a significant amount of money, it's around £300 per extra child that you have, how do we know that that goes to the children to alleviate poverty?
That's per month, isn't it, Leah?
It's
that's
per
about
month,
300
yeah.
per month is the £300, yeah.
And another troubling thing about this is that it disincentivizes people getting off the sofa and going out to work. Because if you are a single parent with 3 children, you would get just under 21,000 before this cap is lifted. Once it's lifted, you'll get £24,500 in your pocket. Now, that means you have more money coming in than somebody who's working full-time, 40 hours a week, earning the minimum wage. Why would you bother?
And some people would say, well, that's a good thing if you want mothers to be able to be, or a parent, not just mothers, that's very sexist of me, but if you want a parent to be at home with the kids, then maybe that's a good thing because children can often benefit from having a parent at home, not going to work.
They can benefit from having a parent at home, but I'm not very keen on that being at the taxpayer's expense. I don't know about you. You know, I think that there are plenty of other families who, you know, are on middling incomes and above. Obviously we're not talking about super high incomes here, but lots and lots of families on typical household incomes who can't afford to make that choice. I'm not convinced that that should be something that is a privilege for benefits, people on benefits, that isn't something that the rest of us can afford to do. Most young families cannot afford to have one parent staying at home anymore because house prices are too expensive, and you know, it's just not an option. That's why so many couples where there are two parents in a family, that's why so many have them both going out to work. They just can't afford to make that choice. It's not a choice available to them. They can't afford to do it.
Let's bring my guests in as well on this, Liat. Greg, let me come to you. Your parents are now, your children are kind of grown up now and successful and living their own lives, but do you feel aggrieved that this appears to be, well, it's not appears to be, it is an economic policy which will benefit people in the UK who are not British born because of the different birth rates? And why in that case, why have Labour done this?
And look, at the same time, there's a massive problem with illegal migration with the boats. And so it's just more incentive for people to come to the country. When mass migration is a top issue for voters, they're just making it even more likely that mass migration will increase. The other thing I always am upset about when Rachel Reeves brags about bringing all these children out of poverty, which is true and it sounds good, the best way to bring them out of poverty is economic growth and wage growth and more people having jobs and tying welfare to work. Those are the things that work, and it's really a shame to see more transfer payments which don't work, and then not even to consider the social ills that come from a massive welfare state. So look, you know, it's good to see children coming out of poverty. I would just wish it would occur because of job growth and wage growth.
And Niall, you know, we do need a welfare state that looks after the very neediest, and I would put children in that category. But this just feels at a time when people feel very poor in the UK at the moment, when people they look at their payslip at the end of the month and they cannot believe the amount that they're paying in tax. This just feels like the wrong place to, I don't know, it just feels wrong at the moment, this policy.
Yeah, and the Labour government's all about expanding the welfare state, frankly, and also, it has to be said, this looks like a cynical exercise to gain votes among immigrant communities, actually, and I think that this is a very, very cynical exercise by a very cynical socialist government, frankly, and I do think that what the government should be doing is expanding tax credits for families that have children in order to encourage more children to be born. But basically, you do that through the tax system. You cut taxes, and that's the way forward. Not by expanding the size of the welfare state, and by also incentivizing, frankly, immigrant communities in this way. So. I do think that the Labour government's all about expanding big government, raising taxes, and growing the size of the welfare state, and I think that's the wrong direction to be taking.
Paul, Labour's Muslim voters will be delighted tonight, who traditionally have much larger families.
Well, I don't think it's about a racial dimension. I think it's about a fairness dimension, and those kids that are the third or the fourth or the extra kids beyond the two, it's not their fault. That's the family they've been born into. So why should they be penalised with a life of poverty because of a welfare system that skews against them? I think it's just a fair thing to do. And if you can break that cycle of poverty, if you can get those kids in poverty now out of poverty into the work that Greg's talking about, and so they're not relying on benefits, then it actually saves money down the line, because you are breaking that link between intergenerational poverty. I mean, it might also help the Roman Catholics. The Roman Catholics have lots of children too, but that's not the way that's not the prism through which we should view this. It's about saying, look, you can't have the scar of child poverty at the levels we've got in this country and be a civilised society. So I think it goes back to some of the things that Gordon Brown used to attempt to do. And just the point on tax credits, by the way, this is the simplest and fastest way to get that money into people's pockets. I think tax credits is quite a complicated bureaucratic solution, so I would just challenge that slightly as being a way forward. I think this is simple, clear, puts money in the pockets, which, of course, as I say, they will then spend in their communities and support businesses and all the rest of it.
Leah, come back on that if you would.
Yeah, look, I think if we want to have children who are in families that are struggling financially, I would rather this £3 billion was spent on other things. I agree, working tax credits would be useful. I think it would also be good if we're going to help families. It would be good to just stretch some of the spending out there. So it would be amazing to see more children get free breakfast and free school meals. I think that another thing I'd rather see happen with this kind of money is that kids get or parents get clothing vouchers for their children if they're really struggling. That way that it goes to the child. It can only be spent on children's clothing. And another thing, Sure Start. Sure Start was a brilliant initiative that really helped families in lots and lots of ways. And, that's the sort of thing that truly helps children. I'm just not convinced about this, and I'm certainly not convinced about incentivising families who can't afford it to have ever more children because they can pocket an extra £300 a month.
I'm also sort of interested in this idea that child poverty might drag the child out of poverty. Great. But that therefore the next generation also are benefit from social mobility, because presumably in the creation of a family pool that is reliant on benefits, all you're doing is creating a benefits culture. That child isn't going to grow up and go, well, look how hard my parents worked and I'm going to follow in their footsteps. They're going to go, brilliant, Mum sat back and I had 4 kids and never went to work a day in her life. I fancy a bit of that. Is that not what happens here? Greg Swenson, you're nodding.
I think the evidence... Sorry,
what happens. And the two greatest reductions...
Hang on, Paul, let me go on.
The two greatest reductions in poverty in post-war history in America were from LBJ, by transfer payments, by massive welfare state creation, and Trump in Trump 1.0 by economic creation, economic growth, and it reduced poverty massively. So, look, you choose government, ultimately it fails.
Well, just on that point, I mean, can I just echo the point about Sure Start? What a brilliant idea Sure Start was, and I think this government will have to do something very similar for that social mobility.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. Leah Hughes Joshi, parenting journalist, thank you also for joining us there. I think we've come to the end of the evening, gentlemen. Right, OK, well, hopefully you will all sleep well at home tonight. Greg Swenson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Bev.
Niall Gardner, thank you so much for joining us. You've seen me sipping the water out of here, but I tell you, it was the kind of night where I felt like I did need a gin and tonic. Might go and have one now.
Yeah,
I hope you have a good night's sleep at home, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, this is your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It's fair to say it's quite a bit milder than it was this time yesterday for many of us, and the milder theme's going to continue through today, but with that it's also going to be quite cloudy and a bit wet at times. We have some rain across northern and western areas at the moment, and a lot of that is going to filter a bit further east and southeast as we go through the day, but it's going to take quite a while to move through, so actually some parts of the southeast staying largely dry, at least through daylight hours. That is. Now, as I mentioned, it's mild, markedly milder than it was this time yesterday, and temperatures rising through the day. We're looking at highs around 13, 14 Celsius, so a fair few degrees above average for the time of year. But we do need to watch out for some strong blustery winds. Breezy for all of us, but the strongest winds will be across northern and western parts of Scotland as we go through this evening, and overnight gusts of 60 to 70, perhaps 75 miles per hour here. Also, plenty of showers across northern and western Scotland. Some of them could be quite heavy. A few showers across parts of Northern Ireland through this evening. Some clearer weather across much of northern England and Wales, but across central, southern, eastern England, it's a cloudy, damp end to the day, but eventually that rain is going to clear away towards the southeast around midnight time. I'm expecting it to clear away entirely. Otherwise then, clearer skies following in behind for most, but still plenty of showers towards the north and west. Still those strong winds to watch out for as well towards northwest Scotland. Temperatures not dropping as low as they have done through some recent nights. Despite the clear skies, that breeze will stop it from getting especially chilly. Then Friday actually looks like a largely fine start for many. Still breezy for sure, but a lot of sunshine to be had first thing. More showers developing as we go through the day, coming in from the west and fairly frequent across parts of Scotland. Some winteriness mixed in over the higher ground too. Watch out as those showers could merge into some longer spells of rain at times, and temperatures around average, so not quite as high as they are today.